never thought I'd be the kind of woman who entertained dangerous thoughts. But here I was, 27 years old, married to a man who barely looked at me anymore, and slowly drowning in a silence that stretched across our house like dust on forgotten furniture. Mason, my husband, used to be warm, back when we were still trying at everything. Now, we mostly shared meals in silence, scrolled through our phones on opposite sides of the bed, and touched only when necessity demanded it. I tried to convince myself that this was just the rhythm of marriage, that maybe passion always burned out eventually. Then Claire started bringing Josh around. Claire, my best friend since college, had a way of lighting up rooms. Her laughter, wild and contagious, was the kind that made people lean in. And Josh, he leaned in too. Claire had met him 6 months ago. He was easy on the eyes, tall, fit, confident in a way that made people pause. But it wasn't his looks that caught me off guard. It was how he noticed things. The first time we all had dinner together at my place, I watched Mason absent-mindedly scroll through his emails while I served the food. Josh, on the other hand, stood up to help me carry the plates. "You made all this yourself?" he asked, smiling. "Damn, Claire didn't tell me you were the domestic goddess type." I laughed, a little too loud, a little too touched by the compliment. He grinned wider, then winked. And I felt something in me stretch, somewhere between flattery and guilt. Claire had too much wine that night. By the time dessert came out, she was slurring words and laughing at jokes we hadn't told. "I'm just gonna go lie down for a second," she said, swaying as she made her way to the guest room. That left Josh and me in the kitchen. He started cleaning up, insisting I sit. I didn't. Felt awkward. Or maybe I felt aware. Of his arms flexing under his t-shirt, of the quiet hum in the air, of the way his eyes met mine and didn't flinch. "I can see why Mason married you," he said suddenly, rinsing a plate. "You've got that calm fire thing going on." I blinked. Calm fire? Yeah. Like, the kind of woman who burns slow but deep. I didn't know how to respond. I just stood there, my hands on a dish towel, my heart acting like it forgot the rules. He handed me a plate and our fingers brushed. It was small, stupid. But it felt like a spark. I pulled away quickly, pretending I hadn't felt it. But I had. And he had too. Later that night, I lay in bed next to Mason, who had fallen asleep with the TV still murmuring in the background. I stared at the ceiling, replaying that moment in the kitchen. The brush of fingers. The way Josh had looked at me like I mattered. Like I still had gravity. I told myself it was nothing. That I was just starved for attention, not actually drawn to him. But the next weekend proved otherwise. Claire and Josh came over again. This time, Josh sat next to me on the couch while Mason and Claire argued over what to stream. He leaned in to show me something on his phone, some dumb meme. His shoulder touched mine. Warm, solid, aware. Again, I told myself to stop reading into things. But then he looked at me, eyes lingering for just a beat too long. And I didn't look away. He smiled. Subtle. Confident. Almost like he knew. I stood up to refill my glass, hoping the movement would shatter whatever strange tension had wrapped itself around us. But as I walked into the kitchen, I felt his eyes on me. Watching. Waiting. I wasn't innocent. Not anymore. And I wasn't blind either. That night, Claire fell asleep on the couch, Mason in our bedroom, and I stood at the sink long after everyone else had faded into dreams, staring into the darkness outside the window. My reflection looked back at me, unsure but alive. Josh had said I was a calm fire. He had no idea how close he was to lighting it. It wasn't supposed to go any further. That's what I told myself after the second visit. I even tried to put a little more effort into my marriage after that night. Lit candles at dinner, wore the perfume Mason used to compliment, asked him about his day and waited for a genuine answer. But he barely noticed. He mumbled about meetings, ate quickly, and collapsed into bed by 10. No kiss, no touch, no spark. The emptiness grew louder. Then came the night that everything shifted. Claire called, her voice a little frantic. "My sister just got admitted. Nothing serious, but I need to be with her tonight. I'll grab Josh tomorrow." Do you mind if he just crashes at your place for the night? Course I said yes. Mason was working late. I had a glass of wine already in hand when Josh arrived with his overnight bag. He looked tired but still managed a teasing smirk when he saw me in a satin robe over my clothes. Wow. You planning to seduce me or just trying to make your wine blush? I laughed, trying to shake the heat rising to my cheeks. You wish. He dropped his bag by the door. Don't tempt me. We ate leftover pasta in the dimly lit kitchen. Talked about movies, music, travel. With Mason, conversations had become functional. Grocery lists and water bill reminders. But with Josh, even small talk felt like breathing fresh air. He poured another glass for both of us. You know Claire says something funny about you. I raised an eyebrow. Do I want to hear this? She says you're too pretty to be stuck with someone like Mason. Pause. She said that. He nodded slowly, eyes scanning my face. She says you've got that thing, you walk into a room and people just feel something. I laughed nervously. Claire's dramatic. Josh's gaze didn't waver. She's not wrong though. There was a long silence. Not awkward. Just charged. Like we both knew something was teetering on the edge, waiting to fall. I should clean up, I whispered, picking up my plate. He stood up at the same time. I'll help. We moved around each other in the kitchen, brushing arms, sharing glances that lingered too long. My hand grazed his as I reached for the sponge. He didn't pull away. Natalie, he said, voice low. Tell me to stop. I froze, heart hammering. The air was thick, so thick I could barely breathe. But I didn't say anything. He stepped closer, his fingers gently tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. His lips brushed mine, soft at first as if asking permission. Gave it. The kiss deepened. Months of emotional drought burst open in that moment. His hands gripping my waist, mine tangled in his shirt. We moved to the living room, breathless and pulsing with want. The couch caught us, and suddenly clothes began to shift. His body hovered over mine, heat against heat, but when he tried to push in, he stopped. There was tension, resistance. Josh pulled back slightly, his brow furrowed. Damn. Sorry. Sometimes It's a size thing. Blinked. What? He looked embarrassed. I've had this happen before. I mean, Claire and I always. I silenced him with a kiss. I wasn't thinking straight, only feeling. Try again, I whispered. He hesitated but then nodded. The second time, slower, more deliberate. More about closeness than force, it worked. We didn't crash into each other. We eased in like a secret slipping past the lips, like something forbidden finally finding a place to land. It wasn't about the act. It was about how present he was. His eyes never left mine. His hands explored like they were learning me for the first time. And for once, I didn't feel like a chore or an obligation. Felt chosen. Afterward, we didn't say much. He lay beside me on the couch, one hand tracing small circles on my shoulder. Outside, the wind brushed against the windows, as if reminding me this night didn't belong to daylight. Some point I drifted off. When I woke, the couch was empty. Josh was gone. The clock read 4:23 a.m. A folded blanket rested where he had been, and the faint scent of his cologne still lingered on the cushions. I sat there in the silence, unsure whether to feel full or hollow. 'Cause for once someone had seen me. And now they were gone. Morning came too fast. The light leaking through the curtains felt too honest, too clear for the night I had just lived. I sat in the quiet of my living room, wrapped in the throw blanket Josh had folded for me. His scent still lingered on the cushion beside me. My fingers brushed the fabric like it could bring him back. But the space next to me had already gone cold. I heard Mason in the kitchen making coffee, the sound of spoons against ceramic. I hadn't even noticed him come home. Somehow that made everything worse. He hadn't texted last night, hadn't called. Just returned quietly like he always did, and went straight to bed. Like always. And now nothing was different. Except me. I stood up slowly and walked to the kitchen. Mason looked up, startled. Didn't hear you come in last night. I stayed up talking with Josh. Claire had to leave. He nodded absently. Cool. I've got a 10 a.m. call. That was it. No questions. No curiosity. Just routine. Even if I had wanted to confess something, there was no space for it. He wouldn't even notice if I bled. Later that afternoon, my phone buzzed. Message from Claire. Hey. Josh came home early this morning. He's being weird. Did something happen last night? My stomach dropped. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, but I couldn't type anything. What could I say? Yes, Claire. Something happened. I let your boyfriend see parts of me my husband hasn't touched in months. I let him in because I was lonely, not because I wanted to hurt you. But I did. I did hurt you. Instead, I replied, we just talked. Maybe he's tired. It felt like a betrayal inside a lie. I hated myself for both. I didn't hear from Josh for days. I didn't expect to, but I couldn't stop checking my phone. The silence gnawed at me. I wondered what he was thinking. If he regretted it. If he even thought of me at all. When I finally saw him again, it was accidental. A week later, Claire invited me out for drinks. I hadn't seen her since that night. I wasn't sure I could look her in the eyes without giving something away, but I went anyway. Josh was there. He stiffened when I walked in, his jaw tightening. Claire hugged me like nothing had happened, because to her, nothing had. Only I knew. Only he knew. Only the two of us carried the weight of it. All night he avoided my gaze. I didn't push it. But as I stepped outside for air, he followed a few minutes later. We stood in silence behind the bar's back patio, the cold pressing between us. He finally spoke. I didn't mean for that to happen. I know, I whispered. Me neither. It shouldn't have. I nodded, though it stung. But it did. Josh shoved his hands into his pockets. Claire doesn't deserve that. Neither do you. I looked at him then. Do you regret it? He hesitated. I regret what it meant. But not how it felt. And there it was. We couldn't undo it. We couldn't be what the world would call right. But for one night, we had both reached for something we weren't getting anywhere else. It didn't make it noble, but it made it real. I left early that evening. Claire texted me later saying she hoped everything was okay. I told her I was tired. Another lie. The weeks that followed passed in a blur. Mason remained indifferent. Claire remained unaware, and Josh remained silent. But something had changed in me. It wasn't just about the night with Josh. It was about how easily I disappeared in my own life before he touched me. How rarely I was seen. How much I craved to matter. I started going out more. Taking walks alone. Spending hours in bookstores. Not to avoid my marriage, but to find myself again. Sometimes late at night, I'd remember how Josh had looked at me. Like I wasn't invisible. Like I still had gravity. And sometimes I'd let that memory sit with me quietly. Not as something I wanted to repeat, but as a reminder of how far I had drifted from myself. And how badly I needed to return.